Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on June 7th, 2021 at approximately 11:32 a.m. PST. Things are moving along. Okay, so hopefully you have started doing the necessary work to really assess where your life is so we can get started on this whole planet. Now, it is not up to any one of you individually. It's the same as not up to me. I've come to the conclusion that the whole purpose of my returning was simply to help people understand that everybody on this planet, every single corporeal entity, is of equal value. You are all worth putting the effort into putting this world back on track. So everybody, pretty much everybody, can live in peace and harmony. Now I know that sounds like a long stretch. Okay, it didn't take only a couple of days to get to this state. Sure, now we're gonna sneeze. Okay, that's out of the way. But at least I got a warning this time. This is a live recording, okay, which means I do not go back over and adjust anything. I simply check the date to make sure that I've got the date correct. If I don't have the date correct, I redo the whole thing. That said, okay, like I said, the reason I came back, the reason I've returned to doing these videos is very simple. It is long overdue time for everybody from every single religion, every single walk of life, every political alignment, every country, to realize you're all in exactly the same position. When you're watching this video, or when you're talking to somebody about this video, every single individual is facing the same thing. You are exactly at this moment in time at the start of the rest of your life. No matter how you got to where you are, you're all of equal value. There is not a one of you out there that is worth less than what I am. Okay, there's also not one of you out there that is worth more than what I am. Now, clearly, at least I hope you understand, I am not talking financially. Because financially, there's a lot of people that have gotten a lot more than I do, and a lot of people that have a lot less than I do. But when we start working on the way our world is, take a look at your world, at your life specifically. For just a moment, disregard everybody around you, family included, okay, and look at you personally. This is the one time where being selfish is absolutely imperative. Take a look at yourself and ask yourself, am I content with the way my world is? Am I happy with the way my world is looking? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, it is time to start working towards eliminating the things you're not content with. Now, this does not mean destroy them. This means alter them so that you are content with them. This is going to be one of those days. The fact of the matter is, if you're not content with the way your life is, you will have trouble dealing with other people who are either having success or dealing with people that are having a rough go of it. I found this out personally myself when I was talking to one individual about how much more successful, how much more together things felt for me. Okay, I was genuinely happy. I wasn't trying to create a problem, but what happened was the person I told was having such a hard time with it that it simply, when I told them how much things had changed in my life, instead of it actually making them feel a little better, it made them feel a lot worse. So what I'm telling you is this: it is absolutely imperative to focus on you to start with. Eliminate the things in your life that you're not content with. As you get them changed, and it doesn't matter what you change them to, because if you change them into something and you're not content with what you change them to, you can always change them again. The only thing you cannot do is you cannot change things back so that they never happened. The past is written in concrete for all intents and purposes. Okay, because you got to remember, changing one aspect is not just changing one aspect. It's changing everybody's life. Okay, and the reality is, when we were given free will, when we were given freedom of choice to do what we chose, okay, we were also given the responsibility to take responsibility for the choices we followed. Okay, now in my case, I'm going through things one step at a time, but I have found out one little detail. By eliminating the things that I'm not content with, by altering them so that all I'm left with are things that I am content with, it's easier to deal with what's going on outside of my own home. Never mind outside my own home. It's easier to deal with the stress that my own family is going through in my own home. Okay. I mean, nobody, as far as I'm aware, people do not enjoy taking their frustrations out on other people. They do it because they have no real functional tool to work with, which is where I come in. Every tool that I offer people is a tool. It's got one of two qualities. Either I'm personally using it myself, or I've given it to enough other people that have come back and said that tool worked. Okay, that I can confidently say, here's a tool that works. The most obvious example in that latter case is showing people how to quit alcohol, how to quit drugs, how to quit smoking without withdrawals. Now, I quit the one I never used is I never quit smoking. Of course, in all fairness, I never actually started smoking. And I'll be danged if I'm going to turn around and start smoking just to find out if I was right. The number of former smokers I've talked to that were smoking at the time and I gave them this tool is, quite frankly, I've got no way of counting it. I've been doing it for that long. But I do know that I worked it out at one point. I've got about 80,000 clients under my belt, personal, professional, spiritual, alien abduction, abductees, all of these different genres, if you will, all of these different categories. I've dealt with a whole lot of them. Okay. And the thing is, so when I talk about the database I work with, it is simply my own personal experience. Now, by taking a look at your own life and going, what am I content with? What am I not content with? The content with things, leave them alone. Keep doing them. If you're not content with them, okay, that's when you start changing them. Now, here's the thing. Some of the addictions out there are addictions that you may not be content with, but you may have never found a way to eliminate it. Now, I'm going to give you the key to quitting addictions without withdrawal. I'm not going to tell you there's another video to go look at. Okay, got your ears on? Here you go. If you desire to quit an addiction, doesn't matter what the addiction is. Now, use this in tandem with whatever tools you're already using. If you're using medications to help you cope with things, keep using the medications until the doctor actually says, no, you're good. Okay, we have to trust that the doctors will, at least when they see an overload on the medication, they'll pull you off it. But in addition to anything you're already doing, take a recording device. And I'm just going to use smoking as a simple example. Okay, take a recording device of your choice. A tape recorder gives you an idea how old I am. A cell phone, a computer, doesn't matter. Turn it on and record it. Your voice. This is the boring part. In your voice, you literally repeat the following. I no longer desire to smoke. You do that back to back for half an hour. Okay, just a straight half hour. It's boring as all get out. Don't worry if you stumble over the words on occasion, but just speak slowly. I no longer desire to smoke. Once you've done that, the hard part's over. Now what you do is every night when you've already finished putting everything in order and you're ready to go to bed, you finished getting ready for bed, you finished socializing, you finished your stories to your kids, whatever. whenever you're ready to turn the light off and go to sleep. Okay. Set that recording on to run right as you're drifting off to sleep. Okay. Now, remember, it's I no longer desire to smoke. That's it. Okay, let that run. Okay, the average turnaround time is 21 days. Okay, now here's the thing with it. When you're looking at that particular program, the most susceptible times that I've found to reprogram your brain are either first thing in the morning, just as you're waking up, or last thing at night, just as you're going to sleep. Now, clearly, you can't do this first thing in the morning because you've already got to be awake to figure out where the start button is on the recorder, okay, to play the thing back. So you turn to the nighttime. Okay, now the most effective method, voice to hear, when you're reprogramming yourself, is your own voice. Hence why you use your own voice to do this. Okay, now you start over on day one. That night, you hit play, and you play it as you're drifting off to sleep. Now, you do that every night from now on. Average time to reprogram that seems to be about 21 days. Okay, if you miss running it one day, start over on day one. Okay, and you do the same thing right as you're going to bed. You're ready to go to sleep. Shut everything down, hit play, and close your eyes. Okay, now what you'll find happen, okay, is first and foremost, you'll find that sooner or later, and I can't give you a definite time, but sooner or later, you're going to go to reach for that cigarette and you're going to go, I just don't want it right now. And you're going to put it down. Okay, now this is not an overnight thing, so I do not expect it to wipe out your craving to smoke right off the bat. What you're doing is called self-hypnosis. Or at least I call it self-hypnosis. Or reprogramming, call it what you will. Doesn't matter what you call it, what matters is whether you do it. If you've never attempted this before, if you've never experienced this method, don't make the mistake of saying it won't work. Okay, don't make the mistake of saying, oh, it's too easy. People are misled to believe that things have to be complicated, that you have to drag things out for decades to make it work. It probably didn't take you decades to learn how to walk. It probably didn't take you decades to figure out how to go to use the washroom without using your pants. Okay, but it does take persistence. Now, what ends up happening is eventually what will happen is you will literally no longer have the desire to smoke. Okay, and you'll go you look at the cigarette sales, and you go, no, I just don't want them right now, and you'll walk away. Now, for every individual, it will be a different path. It will be a different time frame. However, from what I've seen over the last, 48 years now, what I have seen is that the vast majority of people follow the same path. They start by getting less of a craving. Okay, they still get the craving to start with. Okay, but you'll get less and less of one, which means you will self-wean yourself. You'll simply take longer between cigarettes. Okay, now do understand, the goal here only works if you personally are going, yes, I'm doing this for me, and here's why it works that way. If you're simply doing it because somebody else says you have to do it, then the odds are your subconscious is going to fight it anyway. Okay, doctors will tell people all over the place, smoking is bad for you. It causes cancer. Well, bad news. Part of that seems to be accurate. First and foremost, it definitely is bad for you. But the only time I've ever found to really recommend people quit is for one reason. If you're already having troubles breathing, putting smoke in your lungs does not seem to be a functional move. Okay, but about 15-20 years ago, it was announced, I heard it announced on the news, that the World Health Organization had come to the conclusion that the number one cause of cancer was breathing. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're not breathing, you're going to have a bigger problem. Although you won't have cancer. Okay, so from that standpoint, that's a bit of an issue. The other issue you have to look at is your body does at this point, if you're a smoker, your body undoubtedly has that physical need for it. Okay, well, quitting cold turkey is always a shock to the system. But by doing this, by doing it with this subliminal programming, what happens is your body gets adjusted to the idea that you don't require the cigarettes anymore. Net result, you can relax a little bit more readily. Okay, now the nice part about it is if you do this, if it doesn't cost you anything, you undoubtedly already have a recording device. It's boring as heck for the first half hour, and then it just requires persistence. Hit that play button at the end of the night, right when you're ready to go to sleep, and let your own voice do the work for you. Okay, now, speaking of hitting buttons and what have you, subscribe to our channel. Okay, spread it to as many people as you can and get the word out. The word that I came back here, that I returned to actually give people, and that I do desire to spread across the entire world, whether it's people that have access to the internet, or whether it's people that have simply access to people that have access to the internet, it doesn't matter. The message has to get out to everybody. Okay, the message has to get out to the point of working together. We can make this world whole again. We can eliminate war, jealousy, fear. It can be eliminated. It is going to take work. It's going to take time. This world did not get into this state overnight. Quite literally, it took thousands of years to get to this state. Okay. But hopefully it's not going to take thousands of years to get back. Okay, but that's up to you. You as an individual have the ability to change your little part of the world and thereby create a ripple effect to change the worlds of everybody around you, to have a positive impact. Okay, now this method that I've just given you has been tested successfully on smoking, on drug addiction, on alcoholism. Okay, like I know for an absolute fact, and the reason I say called absolute fact is I know people that have used this method to break their own habits. Okay, it doesn't happen overnight. And the big thing to remember is, let's say you're running through, you've gone 2 weeks without a cigarette, or not without a cigarette necessarily, but you've gone 2 weeks without missing a day, and you're hitting that button, and you're telling yourself, I no longer desire to smoke. Okay, and then for whatever reason you have a really bad day, and you pick up a cigarette, and you light it, and you go, oh, now I've completely ruined everything I was working on. No, you haven't. You had a minor setback, you start over on day one and carry on. Okay, the fastest I've seen this take place, with smoking specifically, was about a week and the person just quit smoking. Okay, and they never went back. That's the beauty of this method. That came out really bad. The beauty of this method is that it doesn't necessarily take that long. It depends on you, the individual. And you're the only one that can do it. Okay, I can sit here and tell you it's bad for your health, but I'll tell you at the same time, I do not doubt that smoking is bad for your health. But I also do not doubt that if the cigarette companies would quit putting addictive chemicals into the cigarettes, you wouldn't have such a big problem. Of course, they wouldn't have such a big pocketbook, which is what that's all about, I suspect. I don't know. I am not an advocate for cigarette companies. Okay, but I do know this method has worked successfully for smokers, drug addicts, and alcoholics. Okay, now, that said, I did a calculation one day. I was bored, and I'd heard people talk about it all over the place, that they need 8 hours of sleep a night. Well, that's a great idea, but it also means you're sleeping a third of your day of your life away. So I was bored, and I calculated something out. I figured, and I just picked a number at random. I figured, what happens if you don't? How much living time do you gain if you do not sleep that long? If you only sleep 4 hours, given that you're not losing quality of life and you're not losing your health issue, okay, if your health stays safe and your quality of life is still staying up there and your temperament stays stable, how much money, how much living time do you actually get? Okay, and what I worked out, I cut it down to 4 hours, just as a calculation. And do the calculation yourself. Don't just take my word for it. I did the calculation, and it works out that you gain about a month and a half living time if you only sleep 4 hours a night. Okay. Now this is not the best method on the planet. This is simply the one I personally use. Okay. I'm no different from you in that respect. And I mean, I think the best way I ever heard it put was, all that I do, thou shalt do, and more. Meaning, everything that I tell you can be done. Most of it I've tried. Okay, I've experienced most of it. The tools that I give you are ones that I've personally put to use. Now, I've talked to you multiple times about this funny little list that I've got here. Okay. And for me, it has worked It worked like a charm. For some people I've talked to, they've gone, it's really helped me get things organized so I can move forward. If you have not given it a shot yourself, make the effort. Put 3 things on your list to start with, but make them only 15-minute to half-hour jobs. Okay, when you get one finished, check it off and put down another one. In this way, you'll have a constant supply of what you're aiming at correcting. And you target the things you're not content with, not the ones other people tell you are problems. However, with that in mind, keep something else in mind here. If everybody around you is telling you you're drinking too much, okay, ask yourself, is everybody seeing something that I'm overlooking, or are they just completely lost? Now, I've been told all sorts of things. I've been called, quite frankly, because of the way that I am, because of the way that I talk to people. Okay, and the fact that I do not look at anybody from any walk of life any differently than I do anybody else. I have been told literally that I am the devil incarnate, which is a really cute thought. But like I told the one person that told me that, I looked at him and I said, well, if I'm the devil incarnate, then I'm really ticking him off. I'm really ticking the demons off. And I'll do it again. I'll tell you. Find a church, find a temple, find a coven, find a group that you can relate to, that you can socialize with, that you can feel connected to. This is extremely important in order to put this world back together. People have to connect with others. Now, I will tell you, you get those rare people that connect better with animals than they do with people. Okay. Well, sad to say, actually, I'm not sad to say. Animals are people too. So when you get that nice little lady that has like 15 cats, if they're all being taken care of and she's taking care of herself, don't worry about it. That's her family. Okay. If either they are suffering or she is, or he for that matter, okay, then you've got something to work with. But don't just assume because she's a little strange or a little different than you are. Don't assume that makes her nuts. Okay, people told me for decades I was nuts. I've had 3 independent psychiatrists, professionally trained psychiatrists, tell me, no, your mind is working absolutely perfectly. You just don't have a lot of tolerance for stupidity, which I can't effectively argue. Okay. She put that coffee in the wrong place, didn't I? But I absolutely encourage you to find people of like mind. For those of you in the UFO community, okay, because I do speak at live conferences when when I'm invited to them and when I can get to them. For those of you that are involved in that community, understand when people come to you and go, I think I've been abducted or I've seen a UFO, take it right off the top as though they're being honest with you. Remember, they have experienced it until you can ascertain what happened. And it may turn out there's nothing but an odd thing, like a normal thing going on. For instance, by definition, an unidentified flying object is simply an object that was seen that seemed to be flying. It was in the air, which is why I think they call it an unidentified aerial phenomenon now. But if you see it in the air and you don't recognize it, okay, it may turn out that unidentified aerial phenomenon, that unidentified flying object, was a crow flying really high. You just didn't identify it. You know, most things that happen are explainable. Okay, but it takes a lot for people to open up. Now, it took months of people on Spaced Out Radio to convince me to start working on these videos. And it started off with me going, okay, how do I go about changing my world for the better? What tools am I using that may be able to help somebody else? One of the best tools that I ever developed was this funny one right here. Let's see if I can grab the right one. Yep, this one. Little booklet that I wrote. Okay, and it literally says, believe in yourself and follow your dreams. There you go. Now, I wrote that one because it encompasses the simplest tools that I can work with. And because I was finding I was always answering the same questions. So I put that one together. If you look at the list at the bottom of this video, you'll find a list of contact points that you can connect with me. You will also find a list of different publications I've already got in print that can be ordered through me. Okay, the important factor is if you've got questions, drop me a line on any one of the contacts below. YouTube right here, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Okay, all of these are places I do my best to get back to people. I am not perfect by any means, so bear with that one. But if you've asked a question and you don't hear an answer in a reasonable amount of time, probably a week or two, okay, write me back and ask. Okay, I do my best, but I am by no stretch perfect. And, well, I guess if you stretch it far enough. But I also have this neat little problem where technology and I argue with each other all the time. Now, I keep these down to half an hour, so give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share the daylights out of it. Let's get this message back to the people, to everybody, that we can have a better world. We can make this world something to be really proud of, the whole world, all peoples. Now, there will be some exceptions, but working together, we can make this a better world. A world that is more enjoyable for everybody. Don't get hung up on the idea of what title people use for God, Allah, Buddha, whatever. Whatever they are using for a title for their spiritual guide. Don't get hung up on whether or not it's the same name. Okay. Guys can relate, fathers can relate to this. Being called a father, being called a dad, being called a brother, being called an uncle, whatever. There's all kinds of different names that you go by. Okay, I get called a lot of different names. Some of them are repeatable in polite company. Now, I'm going to bring this to a close, but I will be back again tomorrow. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, and for pity's sakes, stay positive.